The research project I'm conducting seeks through individual interviews to develop an understanding of family function following acquired brain injury. The project includes a number of ethical considerations due to the vulnerability of people who have experienced extremely traumatic events. Families are unique and participants may have a variety of feelings. Some may feel they have experienced loss of power due to dealing with medical treatment and transition through rehabilitation, and some may be seeking hope for a brighter future, and others may have, and most of them are likely to have conflicting feelings of happiness and grief. One of the first ethical considerations will be to clearly explain to people that the project is for educational purpose, and although Brightwater will be provided with a copy, the power for me to individually make change is limited. The research project does, however, include the right of reply and questioning of my interpretation, and I hope to provide an honest appraisal of their thoughts and an avenue for the collective voice. I hold ethical responsibility to let families know that the project is based on a social model of disability, which defines disability from a positive perspective with the hope of building resilience, empowering individuals, and building respect for diversity and change. Allowing freedom of voice and respect for individuals is included in the AASW 2010. Responsibility to clients, and as such, the best interest of those participating is vital. The relationship between the participant and the person with injury requires consideration, especially as the voice of the injured person is not included in the interview process. Respect includes finding true meaning in how the participant discusses the person with the injury, because as pointed out by the study by Charles and Bertira Princes, families rarely volunteer sensitive information that portrays the person with the disability in a poor light. Families will be informed of their rights to only discuss areas of their family function in which they feel comfortable, and their right to refuse to answer specific questions or withdraw from the study at any time. So there was an ethical responsibility to choose a methodology. The study itself lends itself to a number of theories, including developing a case study, a phenomenological approach, and grounded theory. The case study approach would require time to truly know and understand the individual family, and due to the limited timeline and my inexperience in research, I felt this approach was not appropriate. The phenomenological approach would focus on the traumatic injury, with a focus on the meaning of the event to the family, rather than addressing the question of family function, their hope and resilience, and looking at their needs. The grounded theory I felt was the best fit, as the methodology seeks to find a theory that supports how families cope with life changes. The method uses a systematic approach to analysing interview responses and hopes to find themes within open and axial coding that can be represented visually. And this visual representation I thought would be a good way to de-identify information. So I'm looking at common themes seen that tie the experiences of the families together, and how do families respond, and what is valued or challenged from the family's perspective. The research proposal has come about following my social work placement with Brightwater Care. Ethically, the issue of power relationships between the family, the person in care, the care provider, and myself as a research student needs consideration. Brightwater is assisting with identifying participants for study, so the issues of coercion need to be addressed. Participants may feel that care to their loved one could be compromised if they speak negatively about the service, and I'll have to be very careful to make sure that they understand that the information is confidential and that I'm a student and not a member of Brightwater. The reason for Brightwater assisting with the recruitment is to minimise traumatic risk of harm and to provide introduction of the project to participants who have specific knowledge of family members' care. As noted in the National Statement of Ethical Conduct, qualitative research emphasises the significance of particular experiences. The approach is recruitment for the study includes having Brightwater social workers approach families to ask if they could be prepared to participate in the educational study, and asking for their consent to pass on their contact number to myself. The issue of confidentiality and respect for self-determination is vital at this point, and it was important to allow time for the family members to reflect on their willingness to participate before making another phone call. The National Statement of Ethical Conduct in Human Research emphasises the value of human dignity, the intrinsic individual value of each person, their right to demonstrate capacity to determine their own life, a person's right to be protected if they do not have capacity for self-determination, and the responsibility for societies and communities to provide structures that empower those most vulnerable. As a researcher, it will be important to predict the possibility of distress caused by sensitive conversations and have a plan to offer support. Brochures will be provided to family members during the interview that provide options for support through agencies such as Head West, Carers WA and Brightwater Care Group. So why is it important to look at family support for people with ABI? Research should be undertaken with a purpose, and the incidence of ABI in Australians is about 2%, so approximately 2% of Australians have an acquired brain injury, with 50% of people having complex needs that require daily support, and families provide the majority of the support over a long period of time. The Australian Association of Social Work 2010 Code of Ethics includes the right for social justice, with the inherent right of all individuals to have some say in the things that affect their lives. So the purpose of the research ethically is to find common themes between families that are seeking service and find out what are their needs, and find out whether there is an impediment with the clinical process that impedes on their choice of individual choices. And we want to build on knowledge based on social model of disability to highlight self-determination and relevance of family function within the caring role. So the major ethical considerations throughout this project will be looking at autonomy and self-determination. There is, however, an ethical dilemma, and that will be balancing the rights of the individual to determine what is best from their perspective versus the need to provide the best possible service for all individuals and families requiring care. Engaging with medical and rehabilitative care environments in which demand outstrips resources, the probability of complete autonomy is limited by resource availability, culture, financial and social ideals, and the system pressures self-determination and autonomy to be situated in a framework of reasonable choice. What freedoms can be allowed without causing undue harm or loss to others requiring assistance? Confidentiality, the AASW Code of Ethics looks at recorded information. It must be impartial and accurate with regard to protection of privacy. An issue with the research project will be the ability to truly de-identify data due to the closed population group. The confidence of each participant will be protected, and the researcher will have to be ethically responsible to ensure that information is not shared unwittingly with other participants. The audio and written material will be kept in a locked cupboard and disposed of through ECU's research protocols. The traumatic and grief and minimising risk of harm. There will be a need to consider that all families and participants have experienced a traumatic event in their past, and retelling about the event and the effect on their family function may bring forth the trauma. So this will be minimised through the recruitment process and also the provision of brochures and ongoing support for these families. Informed consent. This is really important as the consent is an ongoing process and not just a signed consent form. Ethically, responsibility includes meeting with the family members, finding out whether they fully understand the reasons for the research project, and discuss the purpose, risk and possible benefits. Families will be presented information over time and given time to think about whether they want to be involved. They may wish to talk with the project with their family member in care, and information needs to be easily understood, not rushed, and give them an understanding of the amount of time that is needed. The consent process requires open-ended questions and including an opportunity to ask, for them to ask what more they would like to know. Some of the ethical issues to consider would be cultural understanding, language barriers, and an unheard voice of the disabled person in the family structure. The respect for the social model of disability and diversity and individuals' rights is really the most important aspect of this project. So philosophically, the social model of disability represents the framework with ethical principles that promote carers' rights to participate and have choice in health services. So the dilemma for the researcher is to remain aware of promoting a positive representation of Brightwater, whilst they might be engaging in conversations that have some negative feedback on the services. So as outlined in the AASW, the Code of Ethics, there is ethical responsibility to analyse social needs and problems and encourage innovative strategies to meet new and existing demands.